3 days after my wedding, my husband tried to hit me. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I stepped back, blocked him, and watched him stumble hard enough to need urgent care. But as the paramedics carried him away, he looked directly at me and whispered, "You weren't supposed to know yet." Those 6 words changed everything, because his outburst wasn't about anger. It was about a document he'd been desperately trying to make me sign. And when I checked the phone he'd left behind, I found a message waiting. "Did you get her to sign it?" That's when I realized my new husband had been planning something long before our wedding. 3 days after my wedding, my husband raised his hand at me. For 1 second, I couldn't move. Not because I was afraid of him, but because my mind refused to accept what I was seeing. This was Ethan, the man who had held my hand through 2 years of dating and promised my father he would protect me for life. And now he was standing 3 feet away, breathing hard, his hand raised. Then something my father had taught me when I was 12 came back to me. Never freeze. Create distance. Protect yourself. Get somewhere safe. I stepped backward just as Ethan swung. I blocked his arm and moved sideways. He stumbled, caught the edge of the coffee table, and went down hard. "Ethan," for a moment, neither of us moved. Then he groaned and grabbed his ankle. I called for help. By the time the paramedics arrived, he was furious. And just before they carried him out, he looked at me and said something I couldn't stop thinking about. "You weren't supposed to know yet." At the time, I didn't understand what he meant. 3 days earlier, I had stood beside him in a white dress, believing I'd married the safest man I'd ever known. My name is Claire. I'm 29, and until that night, I would have described my marriage as ordinary in the best possible way. Ethan and I met at a friend's birthday dinner. He was funny, confident, attentive. He remembered my coffee order, my childhood dog's name, and how much I hated driving in heavy rain. Within 6 months, we were talking about marriage. My father wasn't convinced. He never disliked Ethan. He watched him carefully. A week before the wedding, Dad pulled me aside while we cleaned up after dinner. "Claire," he said, "marriage isn't about never having problems. It's about what someone does when they don't get their way." I laughed. "You're giving me the father speech?" "I'm giving you the life speech." Then he reminded me of something. When I was 12, he taught me basic self-defense. Not fighting, just how to stay balanced, break away from a grab, and create enough distance to get somewhere safe. "Hopefully," he told me that night, "you'll never need it." I hugged him. "I won't." 3 days after the wedding, I remembered those words. The argument started over something small. Ethan sat at the kitchen counter, scrolling through his phone while I unpacked our last wedding gifts. I found an envelope containing a bank document and asked, "Did you already take care of this?" He looked up. "Take care of what?" "The joint account paperwork. You said we'd finish it this week." His expression changed. Only slightly, but enough. "Why are you suddenly worried about money?" "I'm not worried. I'm just asking." He put his phone down. "You've been asking a lot of questions lately." I laughed. "It's been 3 days since our wedding, Ethan. We're supposed to be organizing our finances. I'm handling it. Together, though. Right?" He stood. His posture made the room feel smaller. "Why do you keep questioning everything I do?" "I don't. You do." His voice rose. I took a step back. Then he said, "Maybe you should just sign what I give you and stop making everything difficult." My stomach tightened. "What am I signing?" He stared at me. For a second, I saw something unfamiliar in his eyes. Then his hand came up. I moved. I blocked his arm, stepped away, and he lost his balance. His fall was loud. My heart was louder. When the paramedics arrived, Ethan kept insisting he was fine. But as they helped him toward the door, he turned his head toward me. His anger had disappeared. Now he looked almost scared. "You weren't supposed to know yet," he whispered. "Know what?" He didn't answer. The ambulance doors closed. I stood alone, surrounded by unopened wedding gifts. Then I noticed his phone on the kitchen counter. The screen lit up. One message appeared. The sender was saved as Daniel. The message said, "Did you get her to sign it?" I stared at those 6 words. Then I realized something terrifying. Ethan's outburst hadn't been about the bank account. It had been about whatever was inside that document. And whatever he was planning. He clearly wasn't ready for me to find out. Ethan came home from urgent care just before noon the next day. He walked through the front door wearing the same clothes from the night before, his ankle wrapped in a temporary brace. For a moment, I almost felt guilty. Then I remembered his raised hand and the message on his phone. "Did you get her to sign it?" Ethan noticed me looking at it. "Why are you staring at my phone?" "I'm not." He walked over and picked it up. "Did you read anything?" The question came too quickly.
"Why?"
"Is there something I should read?"
"No."
Then he smiled. "I'm sorry about last night," he said. "I lost my temper. You scared me." "I know." He lowered his eyes. "I don't know what happened. I was stressed. The wedding, the money, everything happening so fast. Money. There it was again. That afternoon, Ethan became unusually affectionate. He apologized and suggested we postpone our honeymoon. If I hadn't seen what happened, I might have believed him. But something had changed. I wasn't looking at my husband anymore. I was watching a stranger. After he went to take a shower, I checked the kitchen counter. His phone was gone. Of course it was. But the message stayed in my head. "Did you get her to sign it?" I needed to know what it was. So I started with the paperwork. 3 days earlier, Ethan had told me our bank documents were routine. He had promised to handle the administrative details because I was exhausted from the wedding. Now I opened the drawer where he'd placed them. There were 6 documents. The 6th made my stomach tighten. It was an authorization form giving Ethan broad control over a financial account connected to property I owned before our marriage. This wasn't routine paperwork. This was control. I took pictures of every page and called my father's attorney, Mr. Harris. He listened without interrupting. "When did he give you this?" he asked. 2 days ago." "Did you sign it?"
"No."
"Claire, do not sign anything. Do not confront him about the document yet."
"Why?"
"Because if this was prepared before the marriage, we need to know why." I looked toward the bathroom. Water was still running. "Can you check when it was prepared?"
"Yes."
"Send me photographs." I did. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. "Claire, there's something you need to understand."
"What?"
"The document was drafted 11 days before your wedding." My chest tightened. 11 days? Yes. I sat down. Ethan had been planning this before I walked down the aisle. Before our vows. I opened my laptop and checked our shared accounts. At first, everything looked normal. Then I noticed 3 transfers. $4,800, $7,200, $3,500. All sent to an account I didn't recognize. It was a consulting company. I searched the company. Its manager was Daniel Reeves. The same Daniel who had messaged Ethan. My hands started shaking. I called Mr. Harris again. "Daniel Reeves," I said. "Do you know that name?" He paused. "Yes." My stomach dropped. "Who is he?" "An attorney who prepared some of Ethan's premarital documents." I closed my eyes. Everything was connecting. The message, the paperwork, the transfers. Mr. Harris spoke carefully. "Claire, if Ethan prepared these documents before the wedding and moved money into accounts controlled by someone connected to him, this may be more serious than a marital disagreement." "What do you think he was trying to do?" "I think he wanted you to sign something before you understood what it gave him." I looked at the document again. Then I remembered Ethan's words. "Just sign what I give you." For the first time, I understood the argument differently. He hadn't lost his temper because I questioned him. He had panicked because I was getting too close. That evening, Ethan came home carrying flowers. He kissed my forehead. "Better day." I smiled. "Much better." He relaxed. "Good." He thought I was still the woman who trusted every word he said. He didn't know I'd started documenting everything. Then Mr. Harris sent me one final message. "Find the original agreement." I replied.
"Why?"
His answer came immediately. "Because the copy you have isn't the worst part." I stared at the screen. Then I looked across the room at my husband. For the first time since our wedding, I wasn't wondering whether Ethan loved me. I was wondering what, exactly, he had married me for. The original agreement arrived the next morning. Mr. Harris had obtained it through a records request, and when I opened the scanned pages, my hands went cold. It wasn't a simple financial agreement. It was a plan. The document gave Ethan authority over assets I had owned before our marriage, but only if I signed a second acknowledgement after the wedding. That second document was the one he had been pushing across the kitchen counter. I read the final page twice. There was a section describing what would happen if I refused to cooperate. Ethan could claim I was financially irresponsible and emotionally unstable. Then I remembered his words. You weren't supposed to know yet. He hadn't been improvising. He had been following a plan. Mr. Harris called. Claire, there's more. What? Daniel Reeves wasn't just the attorney who prepared the paperwork. He also received payments from Ethan before your wedding. How much? $23,000. Then he sent me copies of their messages. One was dated 9 days before my wedding. Ethan had written, "Once she's married to me, she'll trust me enough to sign." Daniel replied, "Don't rush it. Make it look routine." The man I had married hadn't simply made a terrible mistake. He had calculated my trust. That afternoon, Ethan came home. You seem better. I am. Good. I was worried. He reached for my hand. I let him hold it. For the first time, I understood that pretending not to know was safer than revealing what I had discovered. Over the next few days, Ethan became more confident. He talked about our future and asked whether I had reconsidered the paperwork. I told him I needed time. Take all the time you need, he said. Behind his smile, I could see impatience. Then Ethan made his biggest mistake. He sent Daniel a message. She still hasn't signed. I'm going to tell her the agreement is required for the mortgage. Daniel answered. And if she refuses? Ethan replied. Then we'll use what happened the other night. My hands went numb. He intended to use his own injury against me. The fall that happened while I was protecting myself could become his evidence. He wanted people to believe I had attacked him. Mr. Harris told me not to confront Ethan. Instead, he helped me secure my accounts, change my passwords, move my personal documents, and establish a separate financial record. Then, he filed the necessary paperwork to protect my property. 2 days later, Ethan placed the agreement in front of me. Claire, he said softly, we need to finish this. I looked at the pages. Then at him. You're right. He smiled. I knew you'd understand. I understand everything. His smile disappeared. I slid a folder across the table. Inside were copies of his messages, the payments to Daniel, the original agreement, and records showing when everything had been prepared. Ethan's face went pale. Where did you get those? You taught me something. What? Never sign anything when someone is rushing you. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. He started explaining. Stress. Money. Bad decisions. Miscommunication. I let him finish. Then I said, you try to turn my trust into a contract. He stopped talking. Mr. Harris entered the room. Ethan stared at him. You called a lawyer? No, I said. I called someone who knew how to protect me. The truth came out quickly. The financial records, messages, original agreement, and timeline contradicted Ethan's story. His attempt to portray me as the problem collapsed. Ethan lost control of the assets he had tried to claim. Daniel's involvement was reported. The marriage ended before it could become the trap Ethan had designed. Months later, I visited my father.
He looked at me.
You okay? I will be. He nodded toward my hands. Did you ever think you'd actually need those lessons? I shook my head. The lesson wasn't about fighting. He smiled.
No.
It was about getting yourself somewhere safe. I simply refused to let him rewrite what happened. 3 days after my wedding, I thought losing my marriage would be the worst thing that could happen to me. I was wrong. The worst thing would have been staying long enough to become the person he wanted me to be. Walking away wasn't revenge. It was choosing myself. And this time, I didn't need anyone's permission. And I finally understood the difference.